was a great fit for me. Finally graduated, had a baby, had all the stuff that happens. Finally graduated this past August with that second master's degree.
Oh, good.
And yeah, very strongly credit that with just feeling sound and solid and being equipped to be able to evaluate.
That makes a huge difference. I got Doug's newest book sitting right here, and I've had him on the show
Yes.
a few times. He's been a friend for years, so I'm glad you ran into him and you had that influence in your life. That's
Mm.
awesome. But when people leave groups like, for example, Mormonism, they most do not become Christians. And again, I know there's a huge difference between what you're describing and the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saint. I actually had another guest on a while ago from kind of a fundamentalist Mormon cult from Utah. It was really interesting. But most folks who leave do not come to Orthodox Christianity. And I think some of this, I'm curious if you agree, is you feel burned by religion, burned by authority. So why am I going to step into another, religion and trust these authorities who took advantage of me? And maybe they can't separate, like you said, some of the abuse of the Bible from what the Bible really teaches within itself. You might have answered this, but why did you not become an agnostic or jettison religion? Why did you move from a pseudo-Christian cult into an orthodox, lowercase o, kind of historic Christian faith?
Because I knew God was real.
Okay.
Um, because I, some of those stories that I told are, earlier in our conversation about just knowing that there was something about his character that was different that I just hadn't been taught yet. And I I valued knowing what was true more than I valued it being easier. And please know, again, for anyone who's listening or watching, please, you're hearing some of my story. I'm not saying that lightly. Um, it's a lot easier to not do this. It's a lot. I mean, I've said before in different conversations, like I don't wish being in a cult on anyone or anything of like that, of course. And yet I don't wish leaving one on anyone either because it is an incredibly painful, long process. But we continue to make improvements, like we continue to see progress. And it's so incredibly rewarding. And the fullness of life that is available to us and the freedom that is available to us in the truth of who Christ is 100% worth it. I truly would make this choice again,
Mm.
but it is a very difficult disentangling process. I mean, I think of it like thread that's all tangled up and you've got to take a needle and you're just trying to like, get, I don't know if anyone's done this. I was taught to sew as a little girl, but you're just trying to like get that knot undone. Or if a gold chain necklace, gets a knot in it and it's so hard, it's a lot easier to just like throw something away or to cut off the knotted part and get rid of it than it is to actually go through that process.
Mm.
And so I think that has a lot to do with it. And when I say it's so hard, I'm not only speaking to the mental aspect of it, because there's a lot of that like theological stuff. Yes, I absolutely had apologetic related questions. It wasn't, some of the arguments didn't affect me so much, but things like God's character, things like the problem of evil, of course, was huge. So I had a lot of stuff to work through, who God actually was, his character. What's the point of community? Because do I have to give that another try because it did not go great the first time? So there's a lot of that mentally that's going on, a lot of work that needs to be done there. But there's so much physiologically through real trauma that people experience in situations like this. The wiring that had happened in my nervous system had to change. I mean, it I basically was raised for my brain to function in a certain way. Like different neural pathways are created as our brain at all times. We have neuroplasticity, which thank the Lord for that because it's not permanent. We can change things. But the way I was already kind of wired, so to speak, I had to change a lot of that wiring. Like I said, walking into church and like coming out of my skin when I was walking into church, like I had to change that. Fear of other Christians, I had to change that. Fear of the Bible, reading something other than a King James, which I didn't have to, but it's easier for me to read a different version. And so, like, can I actually do that and not come out of my skin doing that? And so there was a lot of that more kind of psychological, physiological aspect that was holding up the mental work I was doing. And so there's times where I had to slow down. Mentally, I might get somewhere, but emotionally, physiologically, I wasn't there yet. And so I'd have these really extreme, like threat reflex response episodes where it's like, I can't, like I have to step away from church for a while, or I have to step away from this for a while. But Lord, how do I engage you in other ways while I can't do something like that while I'm trying to heal and I'm getting support to do it? So there's just all these different aspects to it. And I think that's a really key part that can be missed sometimes is we can work through all the mental stuff, but there are other aspects to our personhood as God designed us that are going to need care too in order for us to really move forward.
It's so helpful. I think we should read the Bible and pray and go to church, obviously. But sometimes, as evangelicals, that's our response to everything. And it's a little too simplistic. And what you're describing is there is relational and psychological and emotional and intellectual knots to untangle step by step. And that just takes time. That's going to take time. Now, as much as you're comfortable sharing this, feel free to pass. But just having come from that background, you've obviously worked this through, have a great marriage today and kids, and you're helping other people work through this. Are there still just kind of some wounds that remain, so to speak, like scars that God has forgiven that you feel like having this background might just always be with me to some level or not?
Yeah, I think there are. I think the one that I will probably carry to some degree for the rest of my life is the sense of loss.
Mm.
The sense of loss of, like, when I got pregnant with my son and my mom wasn't there. Sharing, he's 6 now, teaching him he loves to cook, and so sharing a recipe that my mama taught me and knowing that I don't, she's not here to be a part of that, and knowing that had we gotten her medical care, she very well could have been.